It begins with a single photograph, grainy, softly lit, almost ordinary. Karen Carpenter stands in the center of it, shoulders gently folded inward, eyes carrying a tenderness that seems to apologize for being noticed. At first glance, she looks like any young woman caught in a candid moment. But linger a little longer, and something deeper stirs beneath the surface. A quiet ache, a question, a wounding the world didn't hear in time. Before her voice became the soundtrack of countless lives, before her songs drifted through wedding halls and lonely car rides, Karen was simply a girl trying to find space in a world that kept asking her to be smaller. Even now, decades later, those early images feel like messages from someone calling out softly while smiling for the camera. This story isn't just about fame or tragedy. It's about a gentle force of nature whose gift reshaped music, even as a silent, relentless struggle shadowed every stage she stepped onto. Karen's life invites us closer, asking us to listen, not to the notes she sang, but to the truths she never said aloud. Karen Ann Carpenter entered the world quietly on March 2, 1950, in New Haven, Connecticut, an unassuming beginning for a girl whose voice would one day feel like a warm hand on the heart. She grew up in a home where affection rarely announced itself. Her mother favored precision, order, and Richard's dazzling musical talent. Her father worked long hours, steady but distant. Karen, the gentle second child, learned early how to read a room, how to stay small, how to keep the peace. When the Carpenters moved to Downey, California, the world finally widened for her. The sunshine, the open streets, the newness of everything gave Karen a sense of possibility she had never felt. Yet she was still the shy kid who blended into crowds, the one teachers described as sweet and quiet, the girl who often waited for someone else to speak first. But something inside her was waking up. Music, first through the rhythm of marching bands, then through the thrum of drums, became her language. It was the one place she didn't hesitate, didn't shrink, didn't worry whether she was wanted. Behind a drum kit, she wasn't the overlooked daughter or the polite girl in the second row. She was powerful, certain, heard. Karen's world shifted the moment she and Richard began making music together in the cramped corners of their Downey home. Richard was the prodigy everyone expected greatness from. Karen was the surprise waiting quietly in the wings. She joined him first as a drummer, confident, steady, delighted by the physicality of it. But one afternoon, almost by accident, she stepped to a microphone. She sang a few lines, soft and unpolished, and Richard froze. There was something impossibly pure in her tone, something that made even silence feel reverent. Word spread quickly. Local gigs turned into studio sessions. Their home-recorded demos caught the attention of people who recognized that Karen's voice wasn't merely good, it was unmistakable. She didn't belt, didn't strain for attention. Her sound was intimate, like a confession whispered just for you. It wrapped around listeners gently, making even heartbreak feel strangely comforting. As the Carpenters' early records surfaced, audiences responded instantly. Karen's voice traveled through radios and televisions with disarming clarity, settling into living rooms and memories as if it had been there forever. Her rise looked effortless from the outside, but beneath the glow of early success, another current was beginning to stir, one that would follow her long after the applause began. As fame gathered around the Carpenters, something unexpected happened. Karen, the drummer who loved the safety of the backline, was asked, then pushed, to step out front. The spotlight, at first an exciting novelty, soon became a quiet burden. Under its heat, every movement, every outfit, every angle felt magnified. Photographers wanted her smiling, glowing, thinner. Producers wanted her visible, marketable, perfect. Somewhere along the way, Karen began believing that the world loved her voice, but judged everything else. One promotional photo in particular lingered with her. A harmless picture to everyone else, but to Karen, it became a mirror she couldn't escape. she picked apart her appearance with a precision no critic could match. What had once been healthy discipline around her image turned into an anxious calculation. She started eating less, scrutinizing more, measuring worth by numbers that were never low enough. Yet she never let the turbulence show. On stage, she offered warmth and effortlessness. Off stage, she apologized when her dresses needed altering, when she felt she wasn't shrinking fast enough. It was a shift so subtle that even those closest to her didn't see the full weight of it. Karen wasn't chasing beauty, she was chasing approval, terrified that if she occupied too much space, she might lose the love she'd worked so hard to earn. As the world fell deeper in love with Karen's voice, her private world grew smaller, more controlled, and more fragile. What began as careful dieting slipped quietly into obsession. Meals became rehearsed performances, picking at food, pushing portions around her plate, insisting she'd eaten earlier. Friends noticed the shadows under her eyes, the sharpness of her shoulders, the way she brushed off concern with a soft laugh meant to end the conversation. Touring only fueled the decline. Long flights, late-night performances, pressure-packed interviews. Karen navigated them all with professional grace, but her body was losing the battle she refused to acknowledge. She collapsed once after a show, insisting she was just tired. Bandmates whispered worries. Photographers angled their shots to hide how thin she had become.
Romances, too, brought their own heartbreaks. Karen wanted tenderness, security, a place where she could rest her guard. Instead, she found herself entangled in relationships that left her feeling smaller, lonelier, more unsure of her own worth. Every disappointment cut a little deeper, reinforcing the lie she had begun to believe, that she had to fix herself to be loved. Behind hotel doors and backstage curtains, she fought an invisible storm, one she thought she could control if she just tried harder, ate less, smiled more. But the harder she tried, the further she slipped. By the early 1980s, the facade Karen had worn for so long finally began to crack. The people around her could no longer ignore the frightening decline, and Karen, exhausted, frightened, and longing for relief, agreed to seek real help. For the first time, she spoke openly about her struggle, confessing details that left her loved ones stunned. The secrecy, the rituals, the relentless fear of gaining even a single pound. It was a world she had navigated alone for years. Treatment brought flickers of hope. Karen gained some weight, slowly at first, then more steadily. She bought new clothes, laughed a little more, began planning a fresh start. There were moments when her eyes seemed brighter, when her voice carried a softness untouched by fear. She talked about recording again, about moving on from the heartbreaks that had bruised her spirit. But healing is fragile, and Karen's body had been pushed to its limits far longer than anyone understood. Beneath the surface, her heart, once strong enough to hold entire melodies, had been quietly breaking down. On February 4, 1983, after returning home with the belief that recovery was finally within reach, Karen collapsed. It happened in a flash, without warning, in the very home where her dreams had first begun. The world awoke to the news in disbelief. A voice so full of life had been silenced by a battle she never deserved to face alone. In the days following Karen's passing, the world seemed to move a little more slowly, as if stunned by the sudden absence of a voice that had soothed so many. Radio stations played her songs in quiet tribute, each note carrying the weight of a life both luminous and painfully misunderstood. Fans gathered outside recording studios, leaving flowers and handwritten letters, messages of gratitude, regret, and a love Karen never fully believed she deserved. But her legacy didn't end with mourning. Karen's death sparked conversations that had long been avoided. The pressures placed on artists, the silent torment of eating disorders, the hidden costs of perfection. Families, doctors, and advocates began speaking her name in classrooms and clinics, using her story to save those still fighting the battles she once faced in secret. She preserved her work with a tenderness that reflected a lifetime of collaboration, ensuring her music would never fade. And it didn't. Decades later, Karen's voice remains timeless, warm, intimate, impossibly human. It drifts across generations, comforting strangers she never met, healing wounds she never saw. In the end, Karen Carpenter's life wasn't defined by the struggle that took her, but by the extraordinary gentleness she gave to the world. Her songs remain a reminder of a truth she could not tell herself. She mattered, she was loved, and her voice still echoes where hearts are listening.